Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to the Bottom Line Show, a special edition, because LaMarr is on site. He's on location. He's getting ready for a vacation there, and he's representing the Buckeyes in
Oh
Florida.
yeah,
And so you're searching for maybe a new living situation and taking your family to Orlando. So thank you for being with
yeah.
us this morning.
Oh, definitely, man. How you guys doing today? Doing all right?
I'm doing okay.
That's good.
It's been interesting week, and
Yeah,
the news weighs heavy on me, and so
right.
if you seem if you hear my tone of voice and my body language, it's because of our horrific news and from Texas this week that kind of has got me shook
Yeah,
up. So
yeah. I agree, man. It is. It's frustrating. The two shootings 2 weeks in a row. It seems like it's almost characteristic. We see these things in America where you have one tragedy and then there's a repeat similar tragedy not too long afterwards, and that's something that our country has to get a hold of because no one has it. No one goes through these firearm issues as the United States does. And it's been talked about in that manner, which was the first time this year. This past week was the first time I heard where other countries are comparing how we are compared to the other countries with firearms.
yes,
They're all comparing why we're so bad.
we've heard a lot about that this week. There's been a lot of news articles, a lot of interviews
Yeah,
asking the question of America, why do you allow this? Why does this happen there? Um,
yeah,
why is America unique in that regard?
yeah.
And I have my theories. I'm sure you have yours. I know that you guys have
Hmm.
yours out there. Here we are
Yeah,
again. Here we are
yeah,
again. Not only is it a shooting, which is terrible enough, it's a shooting at a school. And
yeah,
not only is it at a school, it's at an elementary school. Not
yeah.
that more one life isn't worth more than the other, but 9, 10, 11 year olds, it's
It's
hard to
ridiculous.
swallow. It's hard to see. It's hard to hear about it. It's hard to see those kids interviewed outside of the school
Yeah,
and the
right.
look on their face, the look of horror on their face. They will never be the same.
No, they
Never
won't.
be the same.
Yeah,
That those kids will be traumatized for life. They will be wounded for life
yeah.
after having witnessed such a thing
And,
to their
and then
friends, classmates, and teachers.
we also have to applaud the students that were being heroic. Like the one girl who called 911, took her teacher's cell phone and called 911. There are things that we can't even imagine what we would do in those situations. How will we respond? At 11 years old, she had the understanding to grab a cell phone, call 911. Not only that, she called multiple times and was able to say the right things, keep herself in a way that the shooter didn't realize that she was on the phone calling authorities.
So we have a young girl who's so heroic, and the policeman standing outside, which we'll get to. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to remain calm this morning, without cussing, without shouting. Um,
yeah.
so here goes. James, good morning, James.
Good
Our
morning,
country
James.
is criticizing others on human rights violations, and here we are. We value guns over the lives of our children.
Yeah,
Good morning, Greg. Children do not need to deal with adult issues.
yeah,
We try to shield them from adult issues. We try to pass laws to try and keep them clean of over sexualization, as they say. And here we expose them to violence.
hmm.
We have to have a common sense conversation about gun safety. Um,
We're too
I think
selfish as
it's
a country, man.
we've said that before. We said that
Yeah,
before. We need a common sense conversation about it, and we've heard that before, though.
yeah. But
There is
those
there's no common sense. There's no common
well,
sense.
the thing about it that it happens all the time. If you notice it right now, what is the main issue that you heard about yesterday about the shooting? Do you remember? What was the main conversation yesterday?
Police response.
Police response. The governor saying one thing, saying he was misled. That's the argument right now. You know what that's called? Another distraction. You're distracted from the point. Okay, you didn't get your answers right. The point is, if you had policies in place ahead of time, it wouldn't have happened.
Yep.
You
Yep.
can't control, the thing about it is you can't control what people are going to do. I agree with that. That shooter, if he couldn't purchase a weapon, he would have found another way if he wanted to do that kind of harm, but it might not have been as many people dead. People are going to do bad things, but we have to put things in place to limit as much as possible tragedies. We have yet to do anything. We have not done anything. And to make it even worse, we've given more access over the last 2 years. We've given more access to firearms because you can do it without a permit now.
The state of
So
Texas is a permitless carry state, openly permitless carry state. A
yeah,
year or two ago, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, declared that he wanted to make his state a Second Amendment safe zone and bragged about the number of guns that there are owned in Texas.
yeah,
So you reap what you sow. You
yeah.
reap what you sow.
I agree. I agree. That was one of the
Your
things that
policies that you supported are now in place to make it so that an 18-year-old with issues can go in and get an AR-15 and blow away school children.
yeah. And that was one of the issues I had with that whole policy in the first place. I said it from day one. And like I said, as I said before, I support Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. But I've never liked the idea of being able to get a firearm without a permit, without any type of training, without any type of
Yep.
classes.
Yep.
I've always been against that. It's the
Mhm.
most dangerous thing in the world because you're going to have immature, irresponsible people. Not saying that the same thing couldn't happen if you had a permit. The whole thing is that you want to limit as much as possible. Some people can't pass background checks. You say you got to do a background check. It
Mhm.
depends, in my opinion, who's doing the background check.
Mhm.
You
And
know,
we have a
so
bill in Congress right now that the House passed, that the Senate won't pass because they're a bunch of cowards. That universal background checks, depending on what stat you're looking at across the country, race, demographics doesn't matter. 90% of people support a universal background check. Yet here we
yeah,
are. The
yeah,
price of living in this great nation. We have we have allowed it to happen collectively.
yeah,
This is a
yeah,
collective sin upon this country. Some people try to do something about it. Some people shrug their shoulders and say, oh, well. And this will happen again. It's completely foreseeable that it will happen.
yeah.
And we've
Oh yeah,
accepted it as a price of living in America. This is part of
yeah.
American culture, school shootings.
hmm
It's a part of
hmm
American culture. Here we are on
Just
Memorial
shootings
Day
in
weekend.
general.
We are
Just
celebrating people
yeah.
who have sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. But what are they fighting for? What have they lost? What did they sacrifice for if we can't protect our children?
I agree.
Go ahead.
I mean, like I understand that we're talking about just not only school shooting, it's the shootings in general. We have too many shootings in general in our country. I'm talking about from the common crime to a person who goes crazy and grabs their father's gun or go buys one. It's too many shootings in general in our country. We have no regard for the other person's life. And then we claim that we do when something tragic happens, but in between each tragedy, we don't care. It shows that we don't care. The arguments that we have over gun policies show that we don't care about people. We don't care enough because we have yet to do anything. We have done nothing.
Do we care about people? Do we care about life? Do we really care about life in this
No,
country?
we don't. We don't. We don't. I mean, it shows that. You say you no,
issue.
let me put this. Let me put it this way, Darren. We care about life when it's personal to us individually. That's when we care.
But
That's
this
when
is
we
in
care. That's ridiculous.
every demographic, every state. Name me a
Yeah.
marginalized community. Name me any community that this has not hit. It's hit big
No,
cities,
I agree.
small cities. It's hit every state of this union. It's hit
Everywhere.
Republicans and Democrats. It's hit
Yeah.
young people, old people. It's hit churches. It's hit colleges. It's hit people in movie theaters, concert goers in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's hit the gay community in Orlando, Florida. Name me a place where it hasn't happened. Name me a group of people where something like
Everywhere.
this hasn't happened and it has not touched. You could
It
be
happened
next.
everywhere.
You could be next. I could be next.
Yeah,
My family could be next. It could happen
yeah,
here in our school. It could happen in
yeah.
my church. It could happen in my wife's workplace.
I agree. I agree. And that is one of my concerns. I've told my wife this year. I don't really care about being in a lot of crowded places right now. I just don't. Not that I'm like actually just scared or just going around. I'm paranoid. No, it's like why would I put myself in a situation where something can go wrong? Now I'm deprived of my right or my life of just enjoying life. You're now restricted. You shouldn't have to carry your firearm if you are a carrier just because you're going to a place where things may happen. You shouldn't have to think that way
Then
because it's crowded. You
yeah.
shouldn't have to even have that on your mind. But that's the state, that's the type of environment that our country is going into,
Um.
and it's bad.
Good morning, Deanne. Welcome to the show. Greg says that he blames white savagery. This is largely a male white problem.
Yeah,
People that do these kinds of things.
I
Um,
agree.
the government doesn't care. Will never until we vote in caring representatives. Yes. Um, the Senate went on leave for Memorial Day weekend without saying anything about this, doing anything about this. So where should we begin with this? Where should we begin to dive down in this? I have a video of the victims, um, and the reason why I'm a little choked up is I watched that half an hour before we went live, and it's hard. It's hard for me to see that, but I think it's important for us to see. I want us to pause.
Got a
I think it's
question for
important
you.
to pause. I think it's important to be shocked. I think it's
Got a qu-
important to that people
got
need
a
to be that people need to be aware of who these people were lost and who these families are. Um,
Hey, hey, Darren. Think about this. I heard a suggestion recently was that these students need to have an Emmett Till moment. If these parents allowed the um, the bodies, some of these bodies that were torn by this rampage this guy went on, so people can see the damage that these shootings are doing to people. They said Sandy Hook was so bad that it was just hard to look at all the blood that was there, the pools of blood that was everywhere. Let people see images of what
children,
this looked like.
uh,
Yeah,
first,
children. Let people see what this looks like. Those pictures were really sort of hidden unless you got them on the dark web somewhere or somebody released them, early on. Those images were horrible. The same thing at this school because he had a time he had time to shoot without being apprehended or anything.
mhm, mhm.
So it was just suggested that you have an Emmett Till moment where the parents allow, if their bodies were badly damaged, their
Boy,
face or
I don't know.
anything.
I don't
No,
know if I was a parent,
think
I
about.
wasn't, but
Well,
um,
that's the bravery that Emmett Till's mom had because she wanted to see change. She wanted to see change, and
that's
she
a
wanted.
that's a very good comparison. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's something
Oh,
that I just heard this week, and you don't hear that anywhere because you're not going to hear it on all the stations. People are not going to put that comparison there because
mhm, mhm.
you have to be that affected by what's going on. It has to be that of much of a concern to you that you will expose yourself and your loved one who has passed on,
Yep.
so people can see what this is doing.
So we have a lot of comments coming in here. The GOP and the NRA believe more guns makes this country safer. This should be the safest country on the planet. Yeah, but it's not. So what's the difference? What is the uh, where do we go wrong in this equation? And I can't help but bring up the NRA convention that's in Houston. And you saw across the street protesters. You saw people going in with guns, in some cases, flipping them off. Um, the governor, the lieutenant governor of Texas, spoke via video. But you know who did show up? Former President Trump. Former President Trump showed up, and live, did a speech, and guess what? At the NRA convention, no guns were allowed in the room when he was speaking because of safety concerns. How much
Wow,
of a
really? I
hypocrite
didn't know
do you have to
that.
be? How much of a hypocrite do you have to be? I thought guns made people safe. I thought guys with good guys with guns made places safe,
Right.
right? This is what they say. This is the talking point. And yet, at a gun convention, they're not going to allow the former president in a room with guns. Why is that?
He's a
Why is
coward.
Well, we know that. What's the difference between the response in Buffalo and Uvalde? Not much. How long did it take the police to show up in Buffalo? How long? I don't know.
Really. It was, well, you know what? The last couple of shootings, I mean, you look at Parkland, that security guard was scared. He didn't even want to get involved, you know?
Nope.
For you to have, in Uvalde, to have 40 police officers on hand and they're all on standby while people are getting killed.
James, we're going to get into this. There was police officers outside who, for either 40 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour, did not engage the shooter because they believed that he was in a barricaded situation. And then, as many of you out there have heard, that a border patrol SWAT team had to come from presumably an hour away, and that is who engaged the shooter and took him down. This, despite 40% of the small town's budget is spent on the police force. This is despite their police force having a SWAT team and having training in this regards. This is despite police officers being on scene and not engaging the shooter. And this is despite parents outside the school begging them to intercede, and they did not. We're going to
Well,
look at
check
some of
this.
those videos
Well, look
here.
at this. The police officer in New York, I applaud him because he was a retired officer who had the courage to put his life on the line to save others. These officers down in Texas they didn't do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't care about doing that. They didn't have that courage that officer in New York had, who had his life taken away trying to
Mhm,
defend against a shooter.
mhm.
That's a police officer. These guys we see around here, they're not police officers. They're bullies. Then they want to be a punk when it's time to defend, do their job. They're scared. Like I said, the officer in Parkland did the same thing.
Yeah, I remember that. So Greg Battle says the difference between Buffalo and Uvalde is the white shooter's alive. Yeah, that's the difference. And I, you know, I think that it had the person in Buffalo been a person of color, most likely he would have been dead. Yeah, we talked about that. They waited for a key to open the classroom door. I heard that the principal opened the door. But you
It
mean
was
to
a
tell me
janitor.
they could
I
not
heard it was a
bust down a
janitor.
door? They can't bust down a door. The police can't bust down a door when children are being shot. Uh, and
Yeah.
this is after the shooter was shooting at them um, from the inside the school. The janitor had the whole key the whole time. The police never thought to get the key from him. I don't know about that, but the key is not an excuse. I don't think that's just not an excuse for me. So you got to help me out here. So how should we approach this in the next 40 minutes? Um, we have a usual format, but because this is such a huge issue, we're taking our entire hour show today. It's going to be an hour on this issue. How should we look at the victim video? I just lost LaMarr. We're going to look at the video victim or the videos of the victims and who they are. So here we go.
We're learning more about the victims of the massacre. Aaron Salter Jr. is being praised as a hero. The 55-year-old worked security at the supermarket and opened fire on the gunman before being felled by bullets. His swift action is thought to have saved lives.
We're going to actually start this vehicle.
The retired Buffalo police lieutenant was a car enthusiast. He leads
I apologize. That's the wrong video. That was the video from last week highlighting our victims. Let me find that. Let's look at, while I sort this out, let's look at some of the responses from the police on CNN. This is short. This is short because they don't have a lot of excuses.
Teachers that were inside those classrooms.
But don't current best practices, Lieutenant, call for officers to disable a shooter as quickly as possible, regardless of how many officers are actually on site?
Correct. The active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing, you want to preserve
There's
life,
no
but
audio,
also
Darrin.
one thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill
There's
other
no
people inside
audio.
that school.
I didn't get any audio.
There should have been audio. These are built-in videos, so there should be audio. So what he was saying is that if the police had gotten into the school, that they could have been shot as well. Let's do the switch it example for a minute. And let's say that the school was on fire and the fire department showed up and the firefighters had used that excuse. Well, if the firefighters had gotten inside the school to try and save children, then they might have been killed as well. But this is their job. This is their job that they had been trained to do, to respond to an emergency crisis of an active shooter. Here's another video.
What efforts were made to try and break through that door? You say it was locked. What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time. The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
You have people who are alive, children who are calling 911 saying, please send the police. They are alive in that classroom. There are lives that are at risk.
Hey,
That's not protocol, is it?
We're well aware of that.
Right, but why was this decision made not to go in and rescue these children?
Again, you know, the on-scene commander considered a barricaded subject, and
You
there
didn't
was
see one?
time and there were no more children at risk. Stand by. Hey, stand by, all right? I got it. I got it.
I'll go grab. Let's go eat first.
Hey, from the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. But again, I wasn't there, but I'm just telling you, from what we know, we believe there should have been an entry at that as soon as you can.
So I hope that everyone could hear that. Did you hear that, LaMarr? That video?
Yes, I heard it.
Okay, so I thought maybe we were having technical difficulty, but it appears as if that did go through. So he admits it. He admits that they were wrong and that they should have gotten into the building. So what's going to be the response to this from GOP? Well, good guys with guns, more police officers in the schools, hardening the schools, having one entrance, as Senator Ted Cruz says, it's you know, having more than one door, whatever, or just one door, instead of getting to the heart of the issue, which is weapons. The weapons that were used over and over again. It's the same thing. 90% of the time. What is it? An AR-15. We talked about the similarities between the Buffalo shooter and the Uvalde, Texas shooter.
I got it.
How old were both of them?
Hey, I'm going to log off for a little bit, and I'll be back on a little bit later. Okay, Darrin?
Okay. All right. One of the similarities is that they were 18. They were 18. They had just turned 18. And that allowed them to go into a store, purchase an AR-15 style rifle with ammo, and kill people. How old was Kyle Rittenhouse? A young person. a young white person. We know what the problem is. We know what the problem is, and instead of getting to the heart of the issue and doing something about it, we're going to dance around it. We're going to talk about hardening schools. We're going to talk about more guns on the streets. We're going to talk about lessening restrictions. And in this case, it did not work. It did not work. The police did not respond as they should have, and 19 children are dead. A lot of comments coming in. So let's see. Let's back up here. James says the GOP and the NRA want to arm teachers. How many times have we heard that before? We want to arm teachers. We want to arm pilots. We going to arm the cashiers at the grocery stores now? Should we arm pastors at the church? Where does it end? Is this what it's come to? If you think a teacher armed with a handgun should be able to defend against somebody armed with an AR-15 and body armor, well, the police didn't. If the police didn't want to engage with this guy, how courageous do you expect a teacher to be? Leanne says the statement given yesterday, the officer said there were 19 officers there. 19, one for every child that was killed. Plenty to bust in and handle it. Plenty, one person. You couldn't bust down a door with 19 people? Give me a break. They thought they had already killed everyone in the room, so the cops waited. Unbelievable. Unreal. They knew exactly where the governor was. People in the classroom told the 911 dispatch. A failure of communication at the most critical time imaginable. James, if an 18-year-old high school dropout comes to the gun store and buys 2 AR-15 style rifles and ammo, something is definitely wrong, especially when there were warning signs in social media, as there had been in years prior, that this was somebody that was a danger. This was a danger. And in both cases, in Buffalo and in Texas, this was the case. Good morning, Mark. Mark says the GOP response has been the same line that they've been totaling for a decade now. No, 2 decades. When was Columbine High School in Colorado? 1999. I remember that very, very well. I remember being shocked. I remember being dismayed. I remember at that point I became a member of the Brady Political Action Committee, the Brady Bill. If you recall, Secretary Brady, who was shot and almost killed in the brain during the assassination of President Reagan in the 80s, was that 83? This is how long this has been going on. And taking away the assault rifle ban has only exacerbated the problem and made it worse. Greg, good morning. Here's a cold hard fact. In America, people of color are not considered human, period. Apparently, nobody. Apparently nobody is. Some people are considered less than human, and some people might be half a human. But don't get numb to this, people. Don't get numb to this. Don't shrug your shoulders and say, well, this is the price of being in America. It's the price of our freedoms. It's because of the Second Amendment. We could do better. We, in this country, have made laws that have gotten between a woman's uterus and their doctor, and you can't do something about children being shot in the school? James, access to weapons is the root of the problem, not locked doors. Exactly. And this, I'm 1,000% in agreement with the access to weapons. So is it a mental illness issue? Yes. Do they have mental ill people in other countries? Yes. In Canada, in Britain, in Australia, in Egypt. Give me a country. Even China and Russia, as oppressive as they are. In North Korea, I'm sure there's insane people. In Japan, but it doesn't happen there. Their children are relatively safe in school. Ours are not. Ours are not. If you're a parent out there, did you feel angst in the last week of school, sending your kids to school? Those kids were in the last week of school watching a movie, as I understand it. Kyle Rittenhouse was 17. Walking around the streets with an AR-15, killed people. No consequences. We talked about that in the show. So it's been 2 decades. It's been 2 decades that this has been going on. You think that Sandy Hook, that this happened when it happened to first graders, that it would change American consciousness, shock us into doing something more about it? Apparently not. It was April 20th, 1999. Okay. Thank you, Leanne. The reason why Hertz Avis Enterprise won't rent to 18-year-olds. Won't rent their cars to 18-year-olds, but we'll give them a gun. We'll give them a gun, something that's designed to kill. And don't give me the excuse that cars kill more people than guns. How many people drive cars in this country? How many people drive cars every day in this country? Of course, there's going to be more people killed with cars, but they're not designed to kill. They're designed to get people from one place to the next, and we depend on them. Guns are designed for one person to harm and kill. Assault weapons are not designed for hunting. They're not designed for target practice. They're not designed for any sport. They're designed to kill and do harm. You can't buy cigarettes in Ohio until 21, but you can buy an AR at 18. ARs need to be off the streets. I don't care if you're an AR owner. I know, LaMarr, if you're out there listening, you're an AR owner. We talked about this yesterday. So what do you do? What do you do in the future? Well, you have a buyback program. You make it illegal. You reinstitute the assault weapons ban. And I know people out there will say, well, what's an assault weapon? For some reason, for was a decade and a half, at least a decade, we had an assault weapons ban. So we didn't have any problem defining what an assault weapon was at that point. And statistically, you saw after the ban that murder went down, mass murder went down, horrific shootings went down, parents bearing children who should not have died went down. And we can agree to reinstitute that. This has nothing to do with your right to own a gun. We can pass universal background checks. We can pass waiting periods. It does not impede your ability to own a gun. Those two things. We can impose age limits. We can certainly impose age limits. Alcohol, cigarettes, you can buy at 21, but you can buy a weapon of death at 18. The sad truth in this country is that we're more concerned about specific rights that concern individuals than we have these issues going on, women's rights, trans rights, and so on. This is what they have decided to focus on instead. But we allow children to be slaughtered in a classroom where they are supposed to be safe. I'm trying to take a deep breath and before I continue, because I got a little freaked out there. And here's our, I'm going to upload this. I uploaded the wrong video, and I apologize this morning. That was the victim video last week from Buffalo. I'm going to upload the one from Texas, and I want you to see their faces. I want you to see the faces of these children, the videos of these children, laughing, smiling, having fun, parents filming them, doing child things. They will forever be 10 years old in their parents' eyes. Their parents will carry this for the rest of their lives. They will never get over this. The senseless violence that we see committed in this country. Here are the victims of the Texas school shooting massacre.
Amazing grace. They had big dreams and big hearts. The sweet faces of the children gone too soon. 8-year-old Uzia Garcia was just learning to play football. He enjoyed passing the pigskin with his doting grandfather. Xavier Javier Lopez was 10. He loved to dance. He also enjoyed skateboarding, and his favorite subject in school was art. Anne-Marie Jo Garza had just made the honor roll. She made her father very proud. Eliana Cruz Torres enjoyed baseball. Here she is ready to hit a home run. Tess Marie Mata was also 10. She really liked milkshakes. Here she is dancing up a storm to Bruno Mars. Lexi Rubio was described as a bright light to everyone who knew her. Jose Flores was a big baseball fan. He loved school. Rod was 10 years old. She loved gymnastics class. Rigilio Torres called himself a difference maker at school. He was 10. Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez showed a lot of school spirit, recently celebrating Field Day. Her cousin, Jackie Cesares, also lost her life. She looks like an angel as she celebrated her first communion 2 weeks ago. Alethea Ramirez held a chocolate chip cupcake to celebrate turning 10. 11-year-old Miranda Manthis had a smile that would light up the room. There are others, all 10 years old. Matt Rodriguez was described as a sweet, smart little girl. Nevea Bravo's cousin says she's flying with the angels now.
My dad.
Ellie Garcia made this video for her dad, who was working and couldn't attend her birthday party.
I love you, Dad.
Yala Nicole Seguero posted this game day photo, ready to watch a basketball game at school. Her cousin, Yese Carmelo Levanos, was also killed. Layla Salazar proudly holds her first place field day ribbons. So many broken hearts, little ones who had so much to live for.
It's hard. Excuse me. I can't imagine those little faces facing down in the last moment of life, a assault weapon, and it tearing through their little bodies. There's no red flag laws in Texas, so it wouldn't have mattered to anybody, and no one would have done anything about it. Are we going to have to do another Amazing Grace video next week where we see the faces of people, of slaughtered victims of innocence in this country? I hope not. I hope not. And sorry, just take a deep breath here. A federal red flag law would be great. A federal red flag law would be great, would be something that I would support. At this time, I don't know what else could be said. Because I'm having a hard time. And this isn't okay. It's not acceptable. And we need to hold our leaders accountable. We need to lay it at their feet. We need to say to them that you can do better. We demand that you do better. We demand that you find a way. We demand that you look beyond partisan politics. We demand that you stop taking NRA money. We demand that you do what's right. That you do what's right. That you do what the will of the people is. The will of the people does not want to see this. This isn't the right will say that you're making it political, that you're using the tragedy to make political points, when you should be worried about the victims. What other recourse do we have but to change our society? And how do we accomplish that? We change our society by getting people to enforce laws, by getting the police to do their job. The police have made a mess in many cases of this country. They made a mess of this country. They made a mess racially in this country. They've exacerbated the division in this country because of their unwillingness to do the job in the right way. We need better trained police officers. And the one thing I do want to say, and that I know I wanted to say and I lost my train of thought until now. Thoughts and prayers. Absolutely, we should have thoughts and prayers. Absolutely, we should reach out to the victims and we should offer our condolences. Absolutely, we should pray. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that prayer makes a difference. I believe that prayer does things. I believe that prayer has power. I believe in this case that prayer has power. I believe that prayer can help the victims' families to get through it. I believe in thoughts. I believe in moments of silence. Moments of silence will bring attention to the gravity of the circumstance and what has happened and honor the victims and their families. But we cannot stop at that point. We need to let our prayers become action. We need to live out of our prayers. We need to live out of this moment and say, what now? What next? Never again. Never again. Never again. I thought maybe Sandy Hook would be the turning point in this country, and it was not. I thought maybe Parkland in Florida would be the turning point for this country, when all the high school students were coming out and doing such a great job of being involved and making this an issue and getting out there in public elected officials' faces and demanding change. And it was not. Will this be any different? I hope so, but I'm not going to cross my fingers. Unfortunately, we will see this happen again in this country. It's what we have decided on collectively. We might not have pulled the trigger. We might not have bought the guns and the ammo. We might not have been anywhere near that circumstance. But all of us, to varying degrees, have blood on our hands. And having the NRA have their meeting in the same state days after this is inconscionable, is just unreal to me. That you would not cancel it, that you would not seek to move it somewhere else, that you would. Now, I understand that President Trump did a little eulogy and read the names where he could barely pronounce the people's. I'm sorry to ban Trump, but where he could barely pronounce the victims' names. And I just have to. I'm just amazed at the hypocrisy. Do they not realize how that looks? Do they not realize how that looks? What is the disconnect in this country? Is it purely money? Is it all money? Is it 100% money that we have issues in this country? 70%, 80%, 90% of people, every day people in this country will agree that something is good to have, something is good to do, and yet we cannot get our elected officials to do it. Is this a democracy anymore? Leanne, praying is beneficial to the one praying, but God isn't a puppet master or a genie. I don't believe God thinks, oh, they prayed extra hard, so I'll send this tragedy elsewhere. No. I largely agree with that. I'm not going to get into a theological discussion. I could, um, but I have my own beliefs about prayer. I believe that the Spirit of God does intercede where we ask it to intercede, but it is a limited power. It's not an all encompassing power. It's not something, obviously, because if it was um, able to cure all ills, then hurricanes and earthquakes and things like this would never happen, of course. But they do, because we live in an imperfect world. And God, although God might be the most powerful thing in the world and in the universe, God is not unlimitedly powerfully, is not all powerful and stop all tragedy and stop all things from happening. God is not a puppet master. We do not control God, but we can influence God. We can, because the Spirit of God is within us, and we are the puppets. We are the people of God that should demand change. And that's why I say it's a sin. This is a sin. It's a sin of this country. Racism is a sin in this country. White supremacy is a sin of this country that we have allowed to foster, that we have allowed to grow. Gun violence is a sin of this country that we have allowed to grow. Can Jesus save us from ourselves, our collective selves? Jesus can save me from my sins. Jesus can bring me up from the pit of despair. Jesus can walk with me through the valley of the shadow of death. But can Jesus save the children in the classroom from a madman? We have to take responsibility. God expects us to do the work of God. And part of the work of God is to try and make this world a better place. It is. It is. And I'm sorry to get theological. Many Christians believe that somehow we're just sort of riding it out until Jesus comes and saves us, or at the end of our lives we get to heaven and everything's good. And this is just sort of a testing ground, or some sort of, the world is doomed anyway, so why bother, right? And that's a terrible thing to believe. We can influence things because of the Spirit of God. 1,000% agree with that. Christianity was used to hold slaves. Yes, that's a historical fact. So we have not always been on the right side of history. Leanne, not unless the madman has God within him, which if he did, he wouldn't be killing kids. Exactly. I heard since the topic of God came out, I'm sorry to laugh, but since the topic of God came out in this discussion, I heard some interviews of people that were going into the NRA convention, and they were talking about, well, it's because there's no prayer in schools and this and that. I'm so tired of that argument. So tired of that argument. You know, I was a teacher. I was a part-time teacher at a magnet school, but I was there 3 or 4 hours every day, 5 days a week, meeting with groups of kids and individuals, and had a classroom full of kids, teaching them music. And we prayed all the time in school. We sang sacred songs in schools. There's nothing stopping you in school from saying a prayer. No one's going to stop you in school. Not around here. No one's going to say don't pray. You could say a silent prayer in school. No one would have to know anything about it. It's not because there's not prayer in schools. Obviously. That is such a misdirected argument that I can't even fathom the reason why it was brought out of the hat for the reason why this happened. Thank you for sticking with me through this. I don't actually like to do this show alone by myself for so long. Usually if I'm doing it by myself, I like to do 5-10 minute segments. Thank you for engaging in this conversation with me and sticking with this for an hour. I don't know about and I'm sorry to digress in the topic this morning and go on and get on a soapbox. One of the things we want to do in this show is to make it very interactive and very audience friendly. So you're part of the show, and what you say, your comments mean a lot to us, and we want to honor them. We want to bring them out. We want to highlight them as well because you are intelligent and have opinions as well, and we learn from you, and I learn from you. Leanne says people claim it's mental health issues, that nothing is done to promote positive mental health. Obviously, we don't give a shit. The same people who want to use the mental health argument when something like this happens, cut mental health, cut funding for mental health. And like I say, it's not a mental health issue that this happens. You might use the excuse, well, obviously, if you are a mass murderer, you have mental health issues. Yes, but what was a therapist supposed to do for this if you're not in therapy? What is medication supposed to do to prevent this? What is what does that have to do with this happening? There is no causality because in other countries, obviously you have mentally ill people, and obviously you can kill people with other things like a baseball bat, a knife. The question is, would I be able to kill 19 people in a matter of minutes with a knife? No. With a baseball bat? No. And then the argument is used, well, if it weren't for this, you would get a bomb, right? You would bomb a school if there were no guns. I don't buy that. The reason why these things happen, and it's statistically shown, the reason why people suicide rates are up, and the reason why the number one cause of young people dying is firearms, is because it's easy to get a firearm. You make it harder to get a firearm, less people will die because firearms are very good at killing. A kitchen knife, not as good at killing. You can kill someone with rat poison, but it has another function. A knife you can cut vegetables with. Rat poison you can kill rats with. A car you can use to get to work. There is no other use for a gun, as I said before. Guns are extremely good and efficient at killing and harming people, and making it easier to get one will cause more death and mayhem to innocent victims, and it's statistically shown. I could pull it up for you right now, but you all out there can Google and are intelligent yourselves. I can't help but wonder what effect the internet has had over the current school shooting culture. Before 1999, there was one school shooting? Well, that's an interesting question that a lot of people are pointing to. Well, video games, violence on TV, and in entertainment and movies, it could be part of the issue. I'm not going to disregard that. But then again, there's violent video games in other countries. I know they played in Europe. I know they played in Japan. I know they have first-person shooter games in Japan because they're manufactured a lot of times in Japan. EA. So is that an excuse for why it happens here? They have the internet in other countries. In Indonesia and Australia, they have the internet. All over the world, they have the internet. Yet it's very, very, very rare for one of them to take up an arm and make it a reality. That could be because news is propagated quicker and there's more copycats. And the more that this happens, somebody might get in their heads, it's like, oh, I can shoot up a school. And it's easy to do it because I can buy an AR-15 like that guy in Colorado, or that guy in Kentucky, or that guy in Florida, or that guy at Virginia Tech, or that guy in Las Vegas, and shoot people up because I'm angry. Leanne, I'm not blaming video games, although I do think they desensitize. Our easy access to guns makes it more plausible to do here. We are desensitized. I will agree definitely with that, that we are desensitized to violence. We try to protect our kids from sexual content so much so that, we have all these ratings. We can't show naked people. We can't show sexual acts. We can't show we can hardly show even affection. We can't even hint at the fact that there might be a same-sex person out there or a same-sex couple out there having public displays of affection. That's offensive. That we try to protect from kids. Yet we have no problem playing the violent video games in front of our kids beginning as early as they can remember, 5, 6, 7 years old. That Call of Duty game that you like to play at home, I like video games. I played those video games. I played Halo back in the day. I liked it. It was fun, but I'm not going to expose my young child, to that before they understand and have an awareness of what's right from wrong and when they're impressionable. It would just be irresponsible. We are desensitized to violence. We are desensitized to violence. We have a high tolerance rate for violence. People watching people get killed on a screen is something that we sit and watch popcorn with, and it's PG-13, and we can all go to the MCU, and we see people being blown apart in all kinds of ways, and we shrug our shoulders. I think that's a part of it. I do. At any rate, thank you for being with us this morning for the show. Thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for your participation this morning in our discussion. My bottom line, of course, is to not be numb to this. Don't shrug your shoulders. Give $5 to an organization that you believe in. Call your senator. Demand background checks. Vote people out of office who take NRA blood money and allow this to happen through public policies. Demand better from police. Demand better from our leaders. Don't take it anymore. Don't buy their excuses. And this is beyond politics. This is beyond politics, beyond parties. We all have children, and we all go to the store. This affects everyone. It has hit every demographic in America. As I said, I can't see how this should be a slam dunk. Getting universal background checks, anything to prevent just one life, it would be worth it. To prevent one less shooting a year, it would be worth it. Somewhere in this country, it is well beyond ridiculous at this point. I hope all of you out there have a beautiful and wonderful Memorial Day weekend, that you enjoy your family, that you give them a hug, enjoy your cookouts, enjoy that extra day away from work, and may you be blessed.